Hello, Stephanie.
Good morning, Didi.
We are so glad you're here with us today.
Thank you. It's very good to be here.
How and why did you decide to become a neurodevelopmental specialist?
Yes, my name is Stefani Lankhorst, and I work as a neurodevelopmentalist consultant. I completed a degree in early childhood and continued my education with a mentorship program in neurodevelopment. And my main reason for working in this field is because I have a sister who has Down syndrome. And when she was just a baby, my parents found this neurodevelopmental approach and worked these activities at home with her beside doing physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. And all of her development was accelerated because of implementing these activities every single day. And so she is now a young adult, and she can read at a 3rd grade level and do math at a 4th grade level. And her speech is very clear for the new people that she meets at her Monday night friendship club. And so I started studying neurodevelopment, and I have worked for 20 years with families, providing consulting and tutoring and parent support.
As someone who has been working in the field of education for years as a teacher and is familiar with other therapies, what would you say about the neurodevelopmental approach? How does it differ from other methods, and what are its advantages?
I enjoy neurodevelopment teaching strategies alongside working as a teacher because the children are able to move around and play, and the activities stimulate the brain, but it's not all requiring book work in one thing. But the neurodevelopmental approach is very practical. So it is based on the development of each child, so it's individualized. And so a 6-year-old child with autism might be functioning at a 4-year-old level in their visual processing. So they might be at a 2-year-old level in their auditory processing. But they might be at a 3-year-old level with their touch perception and their body control. But with the neurodevelopmental approach, we can target each of those developmental ages and stimulate their growth at that particular spot just for them. And so then we teach to their strengths in their reading and their math, but also work on those development foundations for them, giving them a lot of success and encouragement along the way. Next, this is a method of modeling and imitation. So we don't test the children throughout their learning time. We provide a clear model of a good example, and then we let them imitate what we're doing. So it provides them a positive learning environment. And finally, this therapy is very adaptable to the family routines. So a family might just add in a 3-minute activity to their morning, brushing their teeth. They can do an extra activity with oral motor stimulation that later the child is able to eat 5 new foods. And then they might add something in at the bedtime routine, like listening to special music and doing a massage, so later they can wear their coat and they're not in appropriate weather. And so it's very moldable to the daily routines and sets them up for success in the long run.
Can you share specific cases from your practice in which you have seen changes in your clients applying the neurodevelopmental approach?
This is very exciting to get to share stories from the families that I've worked with, because many families come back and say thank you for your work and for your care, and I say, good job parents, you were dedicated, and that's what made the difference. It was really neat to see a 10-year-old boy who had Asperger's. He was loud and disruptive in school, and his teacher said, you need to do something or he needs to leave the classroom and go to a different way to learning. And he was struggling with his reading and spelling and his writing assignments. So after organizing his brain with these home activities, even after 6 months, he could sit in class and not interrupt because he wasn't bothered by the sounds of the classroom. And he could listen and focus on the teacher's voice. After 2 years of working on things, he was able to be integrated right into his classroom and do his classwork with his age again. So he wasn't behind anymore. Another student with Down syndrome came to me at 6 years old, and he had a lot of sensory play. He was flapping his hands and not playing appropriately. He would clap his hands over his ears and yell when other people were in the room talking. But he started listening to audio stories just to build his language center in his brain. And we started doing activities in the vision field that helped his vision because he wasn't using his central vision. So he would look at his book, but he wasn't seeing the details on the page, and math columns were not lining up when he would look at them. And so math was his favorite subject. So after just 6 months, he was able to focus on his math and enjoy his math learning again. And that made such a difference for him. And then after 2 years, he was reading at age level and doing math at age level. So we just released his potential to be able to learn. Also, there was a child that didn't have any diagnosis. He was in junior high, just getting into 7th grade, and he was 2 years behind in his math and his reading. And his mom was concerned about high school because oftentimes high school students do college work during high school, and she wanted that for him, but wasn't sure how he could even do sports during high school with how much time he had to spend studying. And so with his cooperation, he decided to take 2 years and work on neurodevelopment activities besides his schoolwork and his math tutor. And in just 6 months, half of a school year, he was able to just organize his long-term memory so he could study less and retain what he was learning. So his math tutor was excited because he didn't have to do as much review, and he could start building on that foundation of math. We went back and reviewed some math because it was just disorganized in his brain, remembering the steps. But then he was able to start building on that, and his math tutor recognized he wasn't reviewing as much to go forward. So after 2 years, he went into high school and was able to stay active in sports and continue his education.
What is the role of the parent in the neurodevelopmental approach?
The role of the parent is the key. The key to the neurodevelopmental approach is the parent. I often say the parent is the expert of their own child. No one else knows their child like they do, and no one else is as determined to help their child succeed, and they will never give up on their child. And so the parent, in an evaluation, the parent will share their concerns with me, and I will do the evaluation and assess where the child is at. And together we'll establish what goals we want to target for that child to work on. And then the home activities target those specific goals. The parent is the primary teacher implementing these activities with their child, and they are a very capable teacher. You, the parent, get to see the child grow right before your very eyes. But you, the parent, are very capable, and we will equip you to be successful. You are the expert on your child. There are many reasons that I would recommend the neurodevelopment approach, but there are 5 main reasons why the neurodevelopmental approach is superior to other therapies. First of all, it can be done daily while you're at home, or even while you're traveling, or while you are waiting for a younger sibling at a sports complex. Second, it is individualized. So you might have a large number of activities, but even if you only do 5 activities in one day that are neurodevelopment based, it will make a lifelong impact in that child's life. And third, it encompasses the whole child. So it looks at their development, their speech, their writing, their walking, their math, their reading, their cognitive development, their coordination, and their executive function. Fourth, it includes advice on common medical concerns to be aware of, especially if they have Down syndrome or autism. Oftentimes there's underlying metabolic or nutrition concerns to help that child be more successful in life. And so we have vast experience with many children and talking to other specialists, and we can direct families in good ideas of things to look into. And fifth, it gives a professional perspective throughout the child's life. So as the specialist sees the child twice a year or 3 times a year, it just supports the family to know that you're doing exactly what the child needs for their growth and their academic work right now.
What are the main principles in the neurodevelopmental approach?
There are 4 principles in the neurodevelopmental approach I'd like to talk about. First is neuroplasticity. The brain, so what is neuroplasticity? It is that the brain can be influenced by specific environmental stimulation, and it can grow and respond at any age. In fact, this whole book is about the brain. And that's what it really talks about, the neuroplasticity and these 4 principles in the beginning. And then it gives exact case situations of great stories about families and how they've seen these specific activities stimulate growth and learning. Second, it addresses the underlying cause of the symptoms. So when you receive a diagnosis, it's a list of symptoms. Do they have this situation going on? Are they reacting this way? But why are they doing those things? And so this gets at that foundation and organizes the whole child's brain and central nervous system so that they can express themselves more fully and more completely. The third principle is that it provides specific stimulation to build those neural connections in the brain. So the daily activities are short, intense, and done frequently. So they're just 2 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, and they're done twice a day, and they're done with intensity. It very captures the child's attention and causes them to focus deeply, and it changes the connections in the brain. And it goes from one neuron can grow up to 10,000 dendrites on it, and all those connections to all different parts of the brain is what causes a child to be more efficient in learning. And then fourth, like we said, it just looks at the metabolic disorders. Are there allergies or other underlying distractions going on in the body that are taking energy away from their focus to learn? And so we help families discern that and give them a guide for solving those situations, solving those problems.
Who is the neurodevelopmental approach intended for?
I would say there are 3 main groups of people that the neurodevelopmental approach is intended for. There is the child who is struggling. There is the adult, and there are children with a diagnosis. So first of all, the child who is struggling in learning, they can often fill in those gaps in their stages of learning and development that are causing that delay in 1.5 to 2 years of neurodevelopment work. So this includes children with dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, dysgraphia, dysphoria, stuttering, developmental delay, or OCD. In contrast, there are children who will need more time. They'll need 3 to 5 years with specific neurodevelopment stimulation to overcome the disorganization in their brain. The child with autism has their natural strengths emerge after just 1 year of program, but often it takes more time to organize the underlying concerns. And the neurodevelopment approach can be applied to their daily life and improve and continually improve those struggles for them. And then there are adults with social anxiety, stroke recovery, seizure disorders, cerebral palsy, and who have been in a car accident. And they continue to report that they're more aware of themselves, they have better long-term memory, and they have a better ability to function in society as a result of the neurodevelopmental approach. And then children with a diagnosis such as Down syndrome, they continue to gain life skills and academic growth and behavior management skills with the neurodevelopment home plan. And this is a lifelong journey for them.
How neurodevelopmental approach helps children with learning struggles without a diagnosis?
Many children find learning hard, or the parents are concerned they don't want a diagnosis because they don't want it to impede their child's success later in life or opportunities. And so this fits really well with those families because we can look at what are the underlying concerns and causes that are disorganized for them and help the child become capable in communication and help organize their thinking so they can continue to process better and be more organized for studying. And so we work on the short-term memory so they can follow more instructions, so they can enjoy participating with their peers in a large group. Again, and we work on the long-term memory, of helping them be successful in test taking. So they're not stressed out studying, and when they get to the test, they have emotional control to succeed in remembering what they've learned. So for an example, Matthew switched his hand dominance with us and then organized his long-term memory, and he caught up to grade level in his writing and his history and his science. And he was in 6th grade when he started, and then got done when he was in 8th grade, and was able to become a mechanic.
Can the neurodevelopmental approach be applied to adults, and to what age?
The neurodevelopment approach is great for children as young as prenatal and as old as 101. And yes, we've worked with both situations. Many adults with post-stroke symptoms, they're not able to walk or balance or even eat completely on their own after a stroke and after their recovery with the typical therapy. But we have a center in Ohio where they can come and they enjoy the community atmosphere and the camaraderie of others who are also recovering and the cheerfulness of the volunteers. They improve more and more each year. So oftentimes people say, oh, it only lasts for 6 months after stroke that you have this window of opportunity to recover. But we believe in neuroplasticity, and the brain is always growing and able to make new connections if you give specific stimulation. And children that are prenatal, like mamas read books to the babies in utero, and we've done lots of things to help even the preborn children.
What are the main signals or patterns in behavior that point you to neurological difficulties?
Often parents wonder, how do I know that this approach will work for my situation? How do I know, that this is something that would, be something to look at? And I say there's 3 main signals. Like if they have a diagnosis of some kind, that's a clear indicator that their typical pattern of education isn't going to be the best fit for them. If the parent sees a concern, like they just kind of think, I don't know, they just seem to be struggling. They're really smart, but it's really hard for them to get out the information they know. It's really hard for them to handle social situations. Is there something we can do to support them? And yes, this is a great tool that just comes alongside. It doesn't change your curriculum or change where you can go and what you can do to learn, but it just supports them so they can learn really well in any situation. And then the child might have peculiar behaviors that are puzzling to a parent. Even before a diagnosis of autism, parents might wonder, why is my child lining up toys? Why is my child they feel like they have an addiction to these certain behaviors, like they're jumping on the bed over and over, and when I call them, they won't come back. Or they walk through the store really funny and they won't look at people, but they look at the aisle as they're walking. And so parents have this intuition, and it's correct that there might be something that just is disorganized, and those are the children that thrive on this program, because we work on those developmental gaps specific for their child.
What are the most common myths and misconceptions you encounter about children's neurological development?
There are three misconceptions that I would bring out today, because there are things people hear about neurodevelopment or about a child's ability to learn that parents know my child can conquer the world if we just get them the right resources. The first misconception I see is that they want just one specialist and one service, and it will improve everything in their child, and that specialist just going to them without putting any time into a plan will take care of the problem. And there isn't just one diagnosis or one pill or one therapy necessarily that will take care of everything. The second myth is that if I see the right specialist or get that right service, there's only just one thing. There's only just a couple of right people for my child. The body is very complex, the brain is very complex, and you need to look at the whole child and many facets of their stages of development, many facets of their vision and their auditory system, and see how they're uniquely made and what are their strengths, and build on all of those things. And lastly, we don't know which part of our goals, which goal is going to be organized and grow first. Often they're like, if we just fix this one thing or these three goals that I have, then my child will be successful. But we can't say, okay, we'll make this plan based on these three goals. We don't know the journey that child is going to take to organize those goals. Other things might come into play first and organize for that child. And so the development journey is just that. It's a pathway that opens up opportunities, but we don't know how long it's going to take or if it's going to be windy or direct as we work, but we do know it will be specific for that child and will help them all along the way.
Okay.
So I would say one key to the neurodevelopmental approach, based on those misconceptions and those puzzles of how we want to fix things, is to be flexible along the journey. So things do not improve in the order that we set out to achieve them.
What are the three most important things that parents can do at home to help their child's brain and motor development?
This question, I had to break down three important things. I decided to tackle it. What are three most important things in development for an infant? What are three most important things in development for a child? And what are three most important things in development for an adult? Because they're very different stages of life and of development. And so I would say for an infant, the three most important things are tummy time and exploring foods and textures of food for them, and being held and rocked and walked around. For a child, the three most important things in their development are auditory processing drills, listening to audiobooks like listening to lots of good, rich language, literature, and creeping on the hands and knees. And for an adult, the three most important developmental areas to work on are long-term memory organization and auditory processing drills and cross-pattern exercises such as jumping jacks, running sprints, and core muscle work.
What place does play occupy in the process of neurological development? Can you share an example of a game or movement that has a tangible effect in the brain?
Play does impact the brain, yes. You can say that play is the foundation of what changes the brain because movement changes the brain and interacting with language and with people is what organizes the brain. But I would say the first example is swimming. So movement is what develops the structure of the body, and movement is what changes the brain. So there was a child with Down syndrome who participated in swimming at the Special Olympics, and it changed his physical structure because often they have low tone and they're slouchy, but he had very broad shoulders and always held his head high, and it just changed all of his features. So the movement and play is very much a specific developmental way to change the brain. The second example of play impacting children's development is using an indoor mini trampoline. So often children with Down syndrome and autism struggle with colds and getting sick very easily. But jumping on the mini rebounder just helps strengthen the lymphatic system and their immune system. And so it takes away those tendencies to get sick. And because often children with Down syndrome, have flat ear canals instead of them being at the right angle for the fluid to drain. But just doing that movement and those games on the mini trampolines changes that tendency for them. And for the child with autism, jumping on that mini trampoline helps them so they're not jumping on furniture because it gives them that deep pressure feedback. And it allows them to know where their body is in space, and it helps develop their vision. So they're not running to these other sensory stimulations that are not purposeful for them. And third example of play, these are all large motor things, but even playing a game of Uno or playing a game of Candyland with a 3-year-old, I think is stimulating to the brain. But the third example is crawling on the tummy.
How do you work with parents who are worried or skeptical about the approach? How do you motivate them to become an active part of the process?
For the parent who is uncertain, I just wanted to give a lot of hope and encouragement. Imagine seeing your child start to talk in sentences, or to ride a bike, or to make eye contact. Have you seen a child with autism attending a birthday party with friends and singing happy birthday without any meltdowns? This is possible through applying the individualized set of daily neuroorganizing activities. It might sound overwhelming at first, but you are already adjusting your whole life to accommodate this child and their needs right now. So what if you could just add 3 minutes to the bedtime routine in the bathroom, and in 6 months, your child could eat 5 more foods? Or consider adding a massage, like we said before, music to bedtime, and having your child to be able to wear a coat in appropriate weather and be able to start talking in sentences. Small changes open up big opportunities.
Is it useful to combine the neurological approach with other therapies, like speech therapy, occupational therapy, psychotherapy, sensory integration? What do other specialists need to know to work in synergy or harmony with the neurological program?
The neurodevelopmental approach makes all the other therapies and learning opportunities more effective because the child is specifically learning and growing through specific stimulation with the developmental activities. And so it just lets them have more freedom to go as far as they can go with other programs and therapies. I'd say just make room for allowing time to do the neurodevelopment activities each day, and you know, make a time for that, and especially the first 1 or 2 years of doing a neurodevelopmental program, and see what that program provides as a foundation before adding in lots of other programs. I would say to other specialists, it's wonderful to work them together because they will just complement each other.